Have you ever stood in the middle of your own family and felt completely out of place? Like you don't belong, even though you share the same last name? Almost as if you were born into the wrong lineage. There's a distance you can't explain, a tension that hangs in the air, a resistance you never caused. Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. It arrived at the exact moment your spirit was ready to hear it. Nothing about this is random. The spirit moves with precision, and deep down you've known for a long time that something about you is different. Not superior, but assigned, marked, set aside. That inner calling you carry doesn't go unnoticed. It agitates those who are still led by ego, fear, and unhealed wounds. This isn't just another video passing through your feed. This is affirmation. You're not imagining the distance. You're not misreading the coldness, the jealousy, or the subtle rejection. And you're certainly not cursed, you're chosen. And when someone is chosen, even those connected by blood can feel unsettled by what they don't understand. Not because of who you are as a person, but because of what rests on your life. Stay with me, because once this truth fully lands, the way you see your family, your assignment, and your entire path will change permanently. If this is already stirring something inside you, comment 777 right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss messages aligned with your destiny. And share this with someone who knows deep down they were never meant to blend in. Also, if this topic resonates deeply, I've created something intentional for you. A resource designed to go further into this journey. It's called The Chosen One's Awakening Blueprint, and it breaks down the spiritual stages you may already be walking through. It's meant to bring clarity, peace, and understanding to what you're experiencing. The link is below. Visit it after the video if you feel led. Before you move on, pause for a moment. If this message spoke directly to your spirit, if it felt like confirmation rather than coincidence, support this word. Like this video so it reaches other chosen ones who are still questioning themselves. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because these messages are released by alignment, not by chance. And share this with someone who has always felt different, isolated, or misunderstood. Someone who knows deep down they were never meant to blend in. Your engagement isn't just interaction, it's alignment. It's how this message finds the next chosen one. The truth about being chosen is this: it's not a label, it's a burden. It's not about pride or standing above others. It's about humility and surrender before the Most High. When God selects someone, He separates them. He places a mark on their life, not a visible one, but a spiritual one that shifts atmospheres and disrupts comfort. That mark doesn't just affect strangers, it impacts family too. At first, you might think the tension is normal, different personalities, age gaps, misunderstandings. But the root goes deeper. It's spiritual. Even as a child, you sensed you didn't fully belong. You processed life differently. You felt things intensely. You questioned norms others accepted without thought. You could read people beyond their words. That wasn't imagination. That was discernment developing early. The spirit was already active within you, even before you had the language to describe it. Your journey was never gentle. You faced challenges early, storms before stability. That's because God doesn't wait for readiness. He builds it. The chosen are refined through adversity. Rejection, isolation, confusion, and loss weren't punishments. They were preparation. Your family couldn't see that, not because they're malicious, but because spiritual blindness is real. They labeled you difficult, too sensitive, too quiet, too bold, too much. They tried shaping you into what was familiar and manageable. And when your spirit refused to submit to limitation, resentment crept in. But what they were resisting wasn't you. It was the light you carry, not attention-seeking light, not surface-level spirituality, but the kind that exposes truth without speaking, the kind that convicts by presence alone. That light unsettles those still hiding in darkness. You don't need to confront them. Your alignment already does. That's why you're misunderstood. That's why certain family members feel uneasy around you. Their reaction isn't logical, it's spiritual. They may not know why they feel threatened, but their spirit recognizes what you carry. Being chosen means being separated, literally. Separated from old cycles, separated from familiar patterns, separated from generational dysfunction, You weren't sent to continue the bloodline patterns. You were sent to interrupt them. And breaking generational strongholds isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It costs comfort, belonging, and peace. You'll have nights where you question why it had to be you. But God doesn't select randomly. Out of your entire lineage, He saw you. That choice was intentional, purposeful, and as you step into it more fully, the distance becomes undeniable. Invitations fade. Conversations feel forced. The energy shifts when you enter a room. Some will smile while secretly resenting your growth. Why? Because your obedience highlights their compromise. Your healing confronts their stagnation. That's why the support you expected never arrived. Don't internalize it. This is part of the assignment. God never promised comfort. He promised transformation. And through your transformation, others will be impacted. Not through pressure, but through example. Your calling isn't collective, it's personal. A divine mission often requires isolation. When the noise fades, God's voice becomes clearer. That's why certain relationships dissolved. That's why separation happened. You mourned what you lost, but heaven celebrated your release. Because now you can move freely. Now you can hear clearly. Now you can walk without compromise. Chosen one, never shrink to keep others comfortable. Never dim what God ignited. You weren't designed to blend in. You were called to lead. The path is narrow for a reason. Many are invited, but few are selected. And you are among the few. You didn't earn it. You didn't chase it. It was placed on you before you understood it. That's why the opposition was intense. That's why the battles felt relentless. The enemy recognized you before you recognized yourself. But now that you're aware, the power dynamic has shifted. Awareness brings authority, and authority forces resistance to retreat. Stand firm, honor your difference, love from a distance when necessary, but never doubt the calling. You are not here to fit in. You are here to rise. Rise beyond rejection. Rise beyond misunderstanding. Rise beyond bitterness. Because rejection from people is often redirection from God. You were never being excluded. You were being guided. Trust the process. Trust the pain. Trust the power within you. If this confirms something you've always felt but couldn't explain, comment 444 right now. That number represents divine protection, guidance, and clarity. And you are walking in all three. Keep moving forward. The road is demanding, but it's sacred. And it leads to something far greater than you can imagine. Some family members aren't upset because of who you are today. They're unsettled by who you're becoming. They can sense the shift even if they can't explain it. Your growth disrupts their comfort. Your obedience clashes with their resistance. Your light feels overwhelming to the darkness they've learned to live with. You're beginning to loosen chains that have bound your bloodline for generations, and instead of rejoicing, it triggers them. Here's the painful truth. Many of them don't consciously know why they're reacting the way they are. On the surface, it looks like attitude, distance, or indifference. But underneath, it's spiritual. Their mind can't explain it, but their spirit recognizes that you're no longer the same. You've stepped out of the old patterns. You're no longer feeding gossip. You're no longer excusing dysfunction. You're choosing truth, healing, and purpose. And that makes you a mirror. You reflect back the wounds they avoided, the healing they postponed, and the growth they resisted. And people hate mirrors when they're not ready to face themselves. That's why the energy feels strange. That's why conversations feel stiff. That's why laughter no longer feels real. Conviction speaks loudly, even when you say nothing at all. Blood connection does not always equal spiritual alignment. Some people share your DNA, but not your direction. And that misalignment creates tension. You're moving by the Spirit while they're still operating from fear, ego, and tradition. You've crossed into a new level of awareness, and once you do, there's no going back. You see clearer now. You discern deeper. You move with intention, and that clarity exposes everything they've been hiding behind. Pride, control, emotional masks, unresolved pain. The hard reality is this. Some people only loved you when you were quiet, agreeable, and easy to control. As long as you stayed small and didn't challenge the system, You were accepted. But the moment you stepped into your true identity, the moment you said, "This cycle ends with me," the moment you chose freedom over familiarity, everything changed. What looked like love revealed itself as conditional. It wasn't rooted in truth, it was rooted in control. And now that you're no longer under that influence, they don't know how to relate to you. So the warmth fades, the distance grows. And sometimes it's not jealousy, it's fear. Fear that you'll outgrow them. Fear that you'll rise beyond what they understand. Fear that your healing will expose the dysfunction they normalized. Your growth reminds them of where they're stuck. Your healing highlights their unhealed wounds. Your vision makes them feel left behind. And instead of rising with you, they resent you for moving forward. But don't let that stop you. Never dim your light to make others comfortable. The assignment on your life is too significant. You weren't created to blend in. You were designed to stand apart. And standing apart always brings resistance, especially from those who knew you before you knew yourself. They remember your past. They remember your struggles. They try to shrink you back into an old version so they don't have to confront the new one. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them doubt. You are not here to convince anyone. You are here to walk in purpose, and purpose demands focus. You don't need approval from people when heaven has already anointed you. In fact, rejection is often the pressure that pushes you fully into destiny. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, cast into a pit, sold into bondage, yet every painful step positioned him for elevation. What others intended for harm, God used for alignment. So if your family feels distant right now, don't panic. It doesn't mean you're off course. It means you're on the right one. You're breaking patterns, you're shifting spiritual atmospheres, you're answering the call. Yes, it hurts, but that pain is purposeful. It's giving birth to something new, something holy, something unshakable within you. Let them step back. Let them misjudge you. You're not walking for applause, you're walking in obedience. And obedience often looks like isolation before it looks like celebration. But hear this clearly, you are never alone. The Most High walks with you. His presence surrounds you. And your true spiritual family, the ones who recognize your light without explanation, will find you in due time. Keep moving forward. If this is hitting your spirit deeply, comment 999 below. That number represents completion and divine closure. Because the season of confusion, people-pleasing, and explaining your calling to those who refuse to understand, it's finished. Now let's talk about something deeper. Rejection isn't just an emotion, it's a spirit. And it's one of the oldest weapons used against those marked by God. When you're chosen, this spirit often launches its first attack through family, not because you failed, but because the enemy knows that early wounds can distort identity. That's why the rejection cut so deeply. That's why it felt personal and confusing. It wasn't just exclusion, it was an assignment, a strategy meant to weaken your confidence before you discovered your authority. And often it comes through the very people meant to protect you. Parents, siblings, relatives. That's not coincidence. That's warfare. The spirit of rejection doesn't just want to hurt you, it wants to redefine you. It wants you to believe you're unworthy, unwanted, and invisible. It whispers lies. You're the problem. You don't belong. You'll never be accepted. And if you're not spiritually aware, those lies become beliefs. You carry them into adulthood, into relationships, into purpose. You start shrinking, over-explaining, seeking validation from people who were never meant to affirm you. That's the trap. But hear this, chosen one. The rejection you experienced was never a measure of your value. It was evidence of their inability to see you, their blindness, not your lack. Your presence activated something in them they refused to confront. Instead of healing it, they projected it onto you. That wasn't about who you are. That was about what you carry. What's inside you exposed what they were trying to ignore. Your anointing stirred their insecurity. Your obedience awakened something in them that had been asleep for years. An awakening is uncomfortable for anyone who prefers familiarity over truth. This battle doesn't always arrive loudly. Most of the time, it hides in subtle places, in the quiet pauses, in sideways looks, in praise that feels hollow. in jokes meant to diminish you, in the way your progress is ignored while others are celebrated. It's spiritual conflict disguised as everyday behavior. And if you don't recognize it for what it is, it can slowly erode you from the inside. But here's what you must understand. God didn't permit this to crush you. He allowed it to refine you. That rejection became the furnace that exposed the gold already within you. It burned away your craving for approval. It redirected your dependence toward God's voice instead of human opinion. Because had everyone embraced you, you might have stayed comfortable. You might have softened your edges. You might have delayed stepping fully into your calling. So now you stand at a crossroads. You can carry the pain, or you can carry the wisdom. You can live hardened, or you can rise strengthened. You can let the wound define you, or let it become your testimony. Chosen one, this isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. God is dismantling weak foundations so He can rebuild you on truth. You aren't discarded, you're redirected. You aren't damaged, you're under construction. And those who turn their backs on you, don't hate them. Release them. Forgive them. But understand this clearly. Your healing doesn't depend on their apology, and your freedom doesn't wait for their acknowledgement. Heaven selected you, and what God placed inside you outweighs everything they failed to recognize. Lift your head, dry your tears. See rejection for what it truly was. A divine signpost pointing you toward purpose. You're not less because they didn't choose you. You're greater because God did. The isolation season. Chosen one, let's talk about the isolation. That quiet, stretching, often painful season where it feels like everyone disappeared and only God remains. If you're in it right now, you don't need an explanation. You feel it. There was a time when your life was full of people, family, friends, familiar faces, constant connection, and then slowly things changed. One relationship faded, another broke. Conversations became shorter. Invitations stopped. You didn't just feel alone physically, you felt separated on a soul level. Hear this clearly. This isolation is not discipline, it is preparation. When God is about to elevate someone, He first pulls them aside. He removes distractions, attachments, and noise so His voice becomes unmistakable. He hides you, not to diminish you, but to develop you, not to shame you, but to shape you. You're not forgotten, you're being formed. Scripture confirms this pattern again and again. Joseph was isolated before authority. Moses was hidden before leadership. David was unseen before kingship. Even Jesus entered the wilderness before ministry. You're not behind, you're ahead. Yes, it hurts. The silence can feel suffocating when you don't yet understand its purpose. But chosen one, this silence is sacred ground. This is where God removes the residue of old mindsets, where He detoxes you from the opinions of others, where He strips away identities shaped by expectations and projections. This is where you stop being who they said you were and begin becoming who God says you are. You cannot evolve into your future while remaining surrounded by people attached to your past. That's why the separation was necessary. You didn't lose them. God removed them. And don't chase what He intentionally cut away. Not everyone has the capacity to walk where you're being led. Some relationships were seasonal, some were distractions, some were spiritual obstacles. God saw what you couldn't, and in mercy, He cleared the path. Isolation is where God's voice grows louder, where vision sharpens, where dormant gifts awaken. Prayer shifts from routine to intimacy. You stop surviving and begin transforming. You stop performing and start aligning. In this season, you no longer seek to be understood. You no longer negotiate your worth. The only approval that matters is heaven's. Some days, doubt will try to creep in. You'll question the path. You'll miss connection. But remember this truth. Eagles don't soar in flocks. They rise alone. You're not being buried. You're being planted. And what grows in darkness always emerges with strength in the light. God is guarding your purpose, protecting your anointing, shielding you from spiritual contamination. This is a divine quarantine, not from illness, but from interference. Here God reintroduces Himself to you, not just as creator, but as Father, not just as authority, but as companion. And once you encounter his presence in the quiet, no counterfeit noise will ever satisfy you again. So don't resent this season. Steward it. Go deeper. Pray honestly. Study intentionally. Reflect boldly. Let the Spirit do the inner work. You are not alone. You are in divine company. This season will end, but what God builds in you here will determine what you can carry next. Don't rush it. Don't shortcut it. When the time is right, new connections will come. New assignments will unfold. New authority will rest on you. For now, rest in this truth. You are not abandoned. You are hidden. Hidden for protection. Hidden for refinement. Hidden for purpose. Chosen one, this isolation is not the conclusion of your story. It's the chapter where it's written. You're not just being set apart. You're being positioned for elevation, revelation, and manifestation. Walk this season with faith, not fear, because when you emerge, you won't be the same. Stop seeking their validation. Chosen one, hear this clearly. You do not need their validation, not from parents, not from siblings, not from relatives, not from anyone. You spent too much time trying to explain yourself, trying to prove your heart, trying to show that your intentions are pure. But no matter how much you do, some people will never give you the affirmation you desire. And that's okay, because you were never meant to be sustained by their approval. Human validation is intoxicating, especially when it comes from family. When love and affirmation are withheld by those closest to you, it creates a deep ache. You want to fix it. You want to earn it. But that desire becomes a snare. You begin shaping your identity around people who haven't discovered theirs. You delay your assignment seeking applause from those who ignored their own calling. Hear this with love and authority. Their approval is not a requirement for your destiny. You were born to be led by the Spirit, not by opinions. And the moment you stop seeking validation from people is the moment you start walking fully in power. Chosen one, hear this clearly now. What you are experiencing is not accidental, and it is not ordinary. The tension you feel, the distance you notice, the sudden shifts in how people treat you, these are not random life events. They are signs, signals, evidence that something within you has changed, and the spiritual atmosphere around you is responding. When God begins to elevate someone, the first thing that gets tested is not their success, it's their relationships. Because not everyone who had access to you before is meant to walk with you into what's next. Some people were assigned to your past, not your future. And when you start moving in alignment, those connections begin to strain. Chosen one, this is where many lose clarity. They mistake resistance for rejection. They mistake isolation for abandonment. But what if this narrowing is preparation? What if God is reducing distractions so you can finally hear him clearly? You see, spiritual growth doesn't always look like blessings at first. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like misunderstanding. Sometimes it looks like being alone in a room full of people. But solitude is often the classroom where God does his deepest work. There are things God can only say to you when no one else is speaking. There are instructions he will not give in crowds. There are revelations he will only release when your attention is undivided. That's why your path has felt lonely. Not because you are unwanted, but because you are being refined. Chosen one, you were never meant to be easily accessible. Your spirit carries weight. Your words carry authority. Your presence shifts atmospheres, even when you don't say a word. And not everyone knows how to handle that. Some people feel exposed around you without understanding why. Others feel threatened by your peace because it reminds them of the chaos they refuse to confront. So they resist you. They question you. They minimize you. They distance themselves. But listen carefully. Their reaction is confirmation, not condemnation. You are not losing people. You are outgrowing environments. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. You are not withdrawing in fear. You are separating in wisdom. Chosen one, emotional detachment is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. It is the moment you stop letting other people's wounds dictate your direction. It's when you stop absorbing emotions that were never meant to live inside you. It's when you say, I will love you, but I will not lose myself to keep you comfortable. This is not selfishness. This is stewardship. God entrusted you with a spirit, a calling, a destiny, and you are responsible for protecting it. There are people who only feel powerful when you are confused. There are people who only feel safe when you are small. There are people who only feel comfortable when you doubt yourself. And when you stop doing that, when you stand firm, when you become emotionally unavailable to manipulation, those dynamics collapse. That's why the pushback intensifies right before breakthrough. Chosen one, don't be surprised if the ones who benefited most from your silence are the ones who react strongest to your voice. Don't be surprised if the ones who depended on your compliance are offended by your boundaries. That doesn't mean your boundaries are wrong, it means they're working. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your healing. Read that again. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your healing. Healing changes dynamics. Growth disrupts comfort. Truth exposes illusions. And exposure always causes resistance before acceptance. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You don't need their approval to move forward. You don't need their understanding to obey God. You don't need their permission to step into who you are becoming. Chosen one, the moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment your power returns. When you no longer feel the urge to convince, when you no longer feel the need to defend, when you no longer chase closure from people who thrive in confusion, that's when peace enters. That's when authority settles in your spirit. That's when you start walking differently. Not louder, not arrogant, but anchored. And yes, there will be moments when it hurts. Moments when you grieve people who are still alive. Moments when you miss versions of relationships that no longer exist. But don't confuse grief with regret. You can honor what was without returning to what broke you. Chosen one, family warfare cuts the deepest because it strikes where love was supposed to be safe. But understand this. Shared blood does not always mean shared vision. Some family members are connected to you by history, not destiny. And when you begin to walk in truth, that difference becomes obvious. You may notice increased criticism, passive-aggressive comments, guilt disguised as concern, silence where support should be, competition where love should be. This is not because you've done something wrong. It's because your growth challenges what they refuse to confront within themselves. But do not retaliate. Do not explain. Do not shrink. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Stay obedient. Silence with clarity is louder than arguments with emotion. Chosen one, God is teaching you discernment. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone needs to know what God is doing in you. Some things grow best in silence. Protection often looks like privacy, and the more you mature, the less you will react. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand. You understand that. Not every comment needs a response. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every relationship needs saving. Some things are released, not resolved. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Chosen one, you are entering a season where peace matters more than proving a point, where alignment matters more than being liked, where obedience matters more than belonging. And if this message resonates with your spirit, if you feel confirmation stirring inside you, take a moment to like this message and subscribe, not for popularity, but because you are aligning yourself with truth and staying connected to messages that strengthen your spirit matters in this season. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not behind. You are early. You are chosen. You are being prepared. And what God is about to do through you will make the isolation make sense. Stay grounded. Stay discerning. Stay obedient. Your light is not a threat. It's a signal. And those meant to walk with you will recognize it. Chosen one, there's a reason why some people, especially within your own family, feel uncomfortable around you. Even when you haven't said a word, you walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. Something changes. The energy tightens. The silence gets louder. That's not ego. That's not pride. That's presence. That's light. And when light enters a space, darkness gets exposed. Your presence doesn't just brighten a room, it reveals what's been hidden inside it. Unspoken jealousy, buried resentment, unhealed trauma, suppressed guilt. Familiar spirits that were comfortable until you arrived. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your obedience reveals their rebellion. Your peace disrupts their chaos. And the most powerful part is this: you're not even trying to do it. You're just being who God called you to be. That's why some family members talk about you behind your back. That's why they side-eye your progress. That's why they pretend not to notice your transformation. They feel convicted by your presence because it brings their lack of change into full view. You are a walking mirror, and mirrors don't lie. But not everyone is ready to look at themselves, so instead of confronting the truth, they label you. Too deep, too serious, self-righteous, acting brand new. But understand this clearly, chosen one, it's not you they're resisting. It's the light you carry. It's the Spirit of God moving in you. When you walk in that Spirit, you don't need to argue. You don't need to announce yourself. You don't need to explain. The light speaks for itself. It exposes every unclean motive, every hidden stronghold, every generational pattern trying to survive in silence. And exposure makes people uncomfortable, because once something is exposed, it must either be healed or denied. Most people choose denial, but do not dim your light to make them comfortable. Do not shrink so they can stay in the shadows. You were never called to blend in. You were called to shine. Chosen vessels cannot stay hidden. Your presence disrupts old cycles. Your obedience breaks generational curses. Your peace challenges familiar spirits that have gone unchecked for years. That's why some people are fine with everyone else until you walk in. So yes, they'll try to dim you. They'll try to isolate you. They'll try to discredit you. But what they're really trying to do is silence the light before it exposes too much. And it's already too late. You've been activated. You've been ignited. The fire of the Spirit is alive in you, and no amount of cold treatment can put it out. So let them whisper, let them misunderstand, let them doubt. That's not your battle. Your assignment is to stay lit. Your calling is to keep shining. Because the light you carry isn't just for you. It's for the ones still finding their way. It's for the next chosen one watching you from the shadows, waiting for permission to rise. And you give that permission simply by being who you are, without apology. Shine in the silence. Shine through rejection. Shine even when it's lonely, because your light is breaking chains, exposing darkness, and leading others to truth, whether they admit it or not. Now hear this carefully, chosen one. Forgive, but don't go back. Forgiveness is for your freedom, not their comfort. You're not forgiving because what they did was okay. You're forgiving so bitterness doesn't poison your spirit. But forgiveness does not require access. God does not ask you to return to dysfunction to prove you've healed. He does not require you to keep bleeding just to keep the peace. Some people you've forgiven have not changed. They've just become quieter, more manipulative, more polished in their disrespect. And if you return too soon, you'll re-enter cycles God already delivered you from. There is a difference between peace and proximity. You can bless them and still block them. You can love them and still walk away. You can release them from your heart without re-inviting them into your life. That's not bitterness, that's wisdom. Spiritual alignment is not based on DNA, it's based on fruit. And if someone consistently brings confusion, jealousy, tension, or manipulation into your space, they are not assigned to your healing. They are sent to hinder it. You are not cold, you are called. Even Jesus said, "A prophet is without honor in his own house." Don't expect those who saw you broken to honor your healing. Forgiveness is cleansing, but reconciliation requires safety, accountability, and growth. If those are missing, it's not reconciliation, it's relapse. So forgive them, release them. Give it to God, but don't keep returning to pain God already freed you from. If you've ever had to walk away from someone you love deeply just to protect your peace and preserve your purpose, comment 999 below. That marks the end of a cycle. Closure in the spirit, permission to move forward, conclusion. Chosen one, you are not alone. You've walked through fire. You've faced rejection, betrayal, silence, and isolation, often from your own family. And yet here you are, still standing, still growing, still seeking truth. That is proof that God has been with you the entire time. The rejection didn't destroy you, it redirected you. The isolation didn't punish you, it protected you. The pain wasn't pointless, it was preparation. You were never meant to fit in. You were chosen to stand out. Being set apart is not a sentence, it's a strategy. God pulled you away from what was familiar because He's doing something unfamiliar in you. Something that couldn't grow in a crowded, carnal atmosphere. You are part of a remnant. Wounded, but still worshiping. Betrayed, but not bitter. Rejected by man, but chosen by heaven. And if this message resonated deep in your spirit, share it with another chosen one. Someone else needs confirmation. And subscribe and tap the bell so you stay connected to messages that strengthen your spirit in this season. Remember this, you are not forgotten. You are not crazy. You are not behind. You are chosen.